What if I told you that there's a level of consciousness so rare, so powerful, that when an empath reaches it, they become virtually untouchable? Stay with me, because what ancient philosophy reveals about this transformation will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about spiritual evolution. You see, people think empaths are stuck in an endless cycle of feeling, absorbing and suffering. But there's a stage beyond empathy that most people never even know exists, and it's absolutely terrifying for anyone who's ever tried to manipulate them. Here's what most people don't understand about the Sophia stage, and trust me, by the end of this, you'll never underestimate a spiritually awakened empath again. In ancient Greek philosophy, Sophia means divine wisdom, not knowledge, not intelligence, but wisdom that comes from the soul itself. It's the highest form of understanding that a human being can achieve, and when an empath reaches this level, something unprecedented happens. They don't just feel anymore, they know. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and, frankly, game-changing. According to ancient wisdom traditions, most people operate from 3 levels of consciousness. The first is instinct, pure survival. The second is emotion, reactive feeling. The third is intellect, logical thinking. But there's a 4th level that only the spiritually evolved ever reach: Sophia, divine wisdom born from integrated experience. And empaths who've been through hell and back, they're fast-tracked to this level whether they want it or not. Listen carefully to what happens when an empath enters the Sophia stage, because this is where everything you thought you knew about empathy gets turned completely upside down. The empath in Sophia stage stops absorbing emotions and starts transmuting them. They don't take on your pain anymore, they see through it. They don't carry your burden, they illuminate the path for you to carry it yourself. This isn't coldness, it's what the ancient philosophers called enlightened detachment. They've learned the difference between compassion and codependency, between helping and enabling, between loving someone and losing themselves in someone. But here's the twist that will blow your mind. This transformation doesn't happen through meditation retreats or spiritual books. It happens through betrayal, through manipulation, through being pushed so far past their limits that they have no choice but to evolve or break completely. And empaths, they don't break, they transform. According to ancient wisdom, Sophia is achieved when someone integrates 3 sacred elements: knowledge of the self, knowledge of others, and knowledge of universal truth. The empath who's been betrayed repeatedly is forced to acquire all 3 at an accelerated rate. They learn about themselves, their boundaries, their worth, their non-negotiables. They learn about others, who's genuine, who's performing, who's safe. And they learn universal truth, that not everyone deserves access to their light. Here's what happens next, and it changes everything permanently. The Sophia stage empath develops what ancient philosophers called discernment of spirits. They can sense authenticity versus performance in seconds. They know who's genuine before that person even opens their mouth. They feel manipulation forming before it's even spoken aloud. This isn't paranoia. It's hard-earned wisdom operating at a frequency most people can't even comprehend. They stop explaining themselves to people who are committed to misunderstanding them. They stop defending their boundaries to those who never respected them in the first place. They stop pouring their energy into black holes disguised as people. And here's where it gets absolutely unstoppable. The empath at Sophia stage doesn't just protect their energy, they become selective about where they invest their light. They understand that their empathy is sacred, that their emotional capacity is finite, that their depth is a gift, not a resource to be exploited. But here's the part that will send chills down your spine. According to ancient philosophy, Sophia brings with it something called divine indifference, not cruelty, not apathy, but the ability to witness someone's self-destruction without feeling compelled to save them. The Sophia stage empath can watch you lie and not correct you. They can see you manipulate and not call you out. They can witness your pattern and simply walk away. Because they've learned the ultimate wisdom. Some people don't want help. They want an audience for their chaos. Listen to what happens when this wisdom fully integrates, because this is where the empath becomes absolutely magnificent. They develop what the ancients called sovereign presence. They no longer react, they respond. They no longer absorb, they reflect. They no longer rescue, they allow natural consequences. This isn't the empath becoming cold. It's the empath becoming complete. They've integrated their shadow, they've reclaimed their power. They've learned that saying no is just as sacred as saying yes. But here's where the philosophy gets absolutely fascinating. The Sophia stage isn't the end of empathy. It's the perfection of it. The empath doesn't lose their ability to feel deeply. They gain the wisdom to feel selectively. They don't stop caring about humanity. They start caring about themselves with the same intensity they once reserved for others. Ancient wisdom teaches that Sophia reveals itself through paradox. The Sophia stage empath embodies this perfectly. They're simultaneously the most compassionate and the most boundaried, the most understanding and the most discerning, the most loving and the most selective. They can hold space for your pain without taking it on. They can witness your struggle without fixing it. They can love you deeply while letting you go completely. And here's the moment when everything shifts into absolute clarity. The empath at Sophia stage stops seeking validation from others because they found validation within themselves. They stop explaining their worth because they know it intimately. They stop proving their perceptions because they trust their inner knowing above all external noise. They've reached what ancient philosophers called self-sufficient wisdom. They don't need you to understand them. They don't require your approval. They don't seek your recognition. They've become whole unto themselves. But here's the final transformation that makes them absolutely untouchable. According to ancient wisdom, the highest form of Sophia is when someone can see the divine lesson in every wound, the sacred purpose in every betrayal, the gift hidden in every loss. The Sophia stage empath looks back at everyone who hurt them and feels gratitude, not because the pain was deserved, but because it forced them to evolve into someone they could have never become in comfort. They thank the narcissist for teaching them boundaries. They appreciate the manipulator for showing them discernment. They're grateful to the energy vampire for forcing them to protect their light. This isn't Stockholm Syndrome. It's spiritual alchemy at its highest form. Here's what the ancient philosophers understood that most people miss. Wisdom isn't the absence of pain. It's pain transformed into purpose. Suffering consciously integrated becomes the foundation of unshakable inner peace. The empath who reaches Sophia stage doesn't just survive their trauma, they transcend it. They don't just heal their wounds, they transform them into wisdom that lights the way for others. They become living proof that sensitivity, when refined by experience and elevated by consciousness, becomes the most powerful force in human existence. This is what happens when an empath reaches Sophia stage. They don't lose their heart, they gain their sovereignty. They don't become less feeling, they become more discerning. They don't stop loving humanity. They finally learn to love themselves with the same fierce devotion. And once you understand this transformation, you'll never see the journey of the awakened empath the same way again, because they're not just survivors. They're spiritual warriors who've earned their wisdom through fire and emerged not just whole, but holy.